Thank you so much for listening. We've got Dr. Dan joining us from Sioux Falls Hypnosis for a bigger picture. How are you, sir?
I'm very good.
I'm excited to visit with you. We're going to talk about freedom today.
Oh,
which
gosh.
I love that subject. And I was just watching a stand-up comic, and sadly, I don't remember which one. I watch a lot of comedy, but he was talking about a state has the slogan, live free or die.
Live free or die, yeah.
And he was like,
it's New Hampshire?
Couldn't it be live free or fight? He's like, there's other options, you know. But sometimes we feel like it is all
live
or
free
nothing.
or die. Mm-hmm.
And I like what you had to say ahead of time here. We were talking a little bit about freedom and
right. And to make the point, I can't. It was I don't want to bore anybody with details. It was a famous psychologist who said, we have a Statue of Liberty on the East Coast.
Yeah.
He said America should really have a Statue of Responsibility on the West Coast.
Oh, there you go.
Because his point is that liberty, freedom, your rights, which you hear a lot about. People are mentioning that a lot nowadays. Yeah. My rights, my constitutional rights, my whatever. Liberty and freedom and rights only exist with responsibilities.
Yeah.
They are not independent. So when people are talking about, my freedom or my liberty or my rights, the flip side of that coin is always the responsibilities that come with it.
Yeah.
And you don't hear that. Nobody ever says, my freedoms, but I have the responsibility to do this.
Yeah. Exactly.
And you can look at it like the social contract. We have, in order to have, the freedom of speech, we have some responsibilities that come with that.
Yeah.
We can't say things, or we should not.
Yeah.
Let's say responsibly, we should not say things that are harmful. Yeah. We are expected to monitor what we say and to be reasonable and to not be, unnecessarily, hostile, nasty, mean. Do you have the right to do that?
Apparently you do.
You do. But in order for things to not become imbalanced, there's a responsibility that comes with that.
Yeah.
And what we're seeing here, I think, is an overfocus on your rights, on your freedoms, on your liberty, and an underfocus on the responsibilities that have to coexist with that. Otherwise, any freedom without a responsibility that goes with it just ultimately becomes a form of violence.
Yeah.
It becomes a form of aggression or
unchecked,
fascism. Yeah, that's all it is. It becomes freedom without responsibilities is by definition sociopathic.
Oh, yeah.
If that makes you
if
feel
we go
better
that
about
far,
it. Right?
Yeah. Hopefully we don't get that far, but
it is sociopathy. It is a psychopath. It is narcissism. Yeah. When you're focused on your freedoms to the exclusion of your responsibilities to the culture, to the planet, to the world, to the other people and the collective that we live in, that is where you are.
And that's kind of like, where do my rights end and where do your rights start? Because at a certain point, you're not here alone. There's people around you too.
Right. And everybody wants to sort of focus on the one and not the other. Or it seems like there's some, that I don't even have to concern myself with that.
Yeah.
And this is where this is why things, I think one of the reasons why things feel so dysfunctional right now, because we are emphasizing the freedom with absolutely no discussion about our responsibilities to it.
Yeah.
Because you can't have one without the other.
Absolutely.
Freedom with no responsibility is a pathology of some kind.
And I think part of the freedoms that you're talking about, I think they're amplified because of social media. Because there was a time where we didn't know what everybody else was thinking about every single item.
Right.
I had no idea what they were eating for dinner, and I never saw a photo of it. And all of a sudden, it's like, that is readily available. Like, not only do I know what they're eating, and I can see their selfies, so I see what they're wearing, but I also know their every thought if I choose to actually read all of that. And I kind of feel like maybe sometimes we're drowning in information.
Right. And along with that comes this notion that if I don't agree with whatever your information is, you're wrong.
Yeah.
And if you're wrong, I am able to and entitled to and welcomed to have at you over that.
Yeah. Now we have to hate each other.
Yeah. Now we have a conflict of some kind. Rather than your responsibility to that is to be able to live and let live, to coexist, to get along, to cooperate, to compromise, to, all of these things that we're seeing so little of.
Yeah. Compromise 2 weeks in a row.
2 weeks in a row.
We talked about compromise last week.
Yes. But that's the idea is really freedom without responsibility is going to be some form of violence. It's going to be some form of illness. It's going to be some form of sociopathy. It always will. And so when you're thinking about this, when you hear yourself utter the words liberty or freedom, or you're talking about your rights, then in the next breath you take, you should ask yourself what your responsibilities are that must coexist with that.
Oh, yeah.
Because otherwise, what you got going on probably isn't as useful as it could be.
Yeah. I something that made me think of, we lived in Nebraska. It was a small town in Norfolk, Nebraska. There was a guy that I worked with who I remember coming in one Monday morning, and I was so tired because the entire weekend I was busy with this big festival that I was helping with, and I had no time to sleep because I was so busy. Then I said, hey, Joe, we're on the radio at this point. I'm like, hey, did you have a nice weekend? He's like, yeah, this town's boring. There's nothing to do here. And I was like, wait a minute, what? This entire weekend, there was stuff going on every single day, every hour of every day. I'm like, you know what? Maybe it's just you. Maybe you're boring. I'm like, just read your sports. And I remember afterwards, I kind of ruffled some feathers with you. But I'm like, what are you doing to make it better?
Right.
You're complaining there's nothing to do here. Mm-hmm. Meanwhile, you're just home watching TV or playing video games. I'm like, I also realized there were limited options in a small town, and I was helping create things to do.
But you're part of the problem?
Yeah.
Or you're part of the solution?
Well, and I try to be a part of the solution.
Right, and that is your responsibility.
Exactly.
It is you have the freedom to talk about what it is you don't have or would like or you think is absent or whatever. But if you don't accept the responsibility to become part of the solution, then how useful is your whatever you've
Negative
got going on
complaints.
regarding your complaints or whatever? They must travel together, otherwise it's just dysfunction of some kind.
Absolutely. If somebody listening would like to reach out to you, again, Dr. Dan is with Sioux Falls Hypnosis. What is the best way for them to connect with you and maybe schedule a time to meet up?
You can find us on the internet at SiouxFallsHypnosis.com. You can call directly at 605-702-6691.
Very nice. And if you're maybe catching the tail end of this and you're going, I'd like to hear more, you can hear this program and all of the ones from previous weeks at SiouxFallsPodcast.com.